So welcome to All Things Google, our Drive Hacks. There's a link in the bottom left. If you want to digest this a little bit slower than we may be going, if you open up your browser and go to gg.gg/AISJG hack, it's also, thank you, Nancy, in the chat. You can go ahead and click on that. Now, I don't know about you all, but Google Drive is where I store everything, like 400 gigs. You're like, wow, it's a lot. Not only do I store my normal, docs, slides, sheets, but I also have lots of PDFs, images, videos, kids stuff from 5, 6, 10 years ago that, of course, I'm going to use again someday. So we're going to help you today of getting organized with all your stuff, even if it's 10 years old. We're going to help you. So in our session today, we're going to focus on two main areas, one being powerful features and the other of organizing folders. So it's going to be a plethora. It's going to be a lot of information, but don't worry, we're going to give you time to digest it. We're also wanting you to open up your Drive. There's two ways that you can get there. One, just start typing in Drive. And because we've all been there, it should start filling up google.com. And then secondly, another way you can get there is clicking on the 3x3 dots and then going over to Drive. So we'll give you just a few moments to get open the link from chat and get your Drive open.
Today, as Ryan said, we're going to be talking a lot of Google Drive, and most of our folders and file structure and all of our resources have been and especially this past year, living in our virtual, world. And so it's really now the right time, we feel, that we take a look at that and take a look at how we can just look at these folders that we have, restructure them, use some of these powerful features that Google Drive allows us to have and to do to reach to a place where our virtual life is a little bit more or less cluttered. So power features are available, and there are so many. So hashtags, we've all heard about hashtags. We probably have seen them. Some of you have used them before. The cool thing is that hashtags are actually can actually be used with Google Drive. So I'm going to give you a few tricks on how to use those that could help you with finding things easier, searching for things, and being able to locate them easier on your Google Drive. So how does hashtags work with Google Drive? So first, you're going to make your hashtags. So think about hashtags as, just like a topic or a context for your files and folders that you have in your Drive. So think about what kinds of hashtags or topics that you would be visiting more often and frequently, and that you would like to access to easier. So how do we make our hashtags? First, think about, okay, maybe you have like so many rubrics around, your Drive, so many different files that are called rubrics that may be in different folders everywhere in your Drive. You need something to kind of connect them together, but not having it where it's a folder that connects all of these different files. Instead, you could use a hashtag. So virtual learning could be an example. Rubrics could be an example of that, or maybe a project that you're working on that you have so many files spread out in your Drive that you want to bring them together. That is a perfect example of when you would use a hashtag. So how do we do that? Here in this GIF, I show you how to add a hashtag to the title of any document, any slides, any Google Doc, and even folders. And what you can do after adding a hashtag is just searching for that hashtag, and you should be able to find anything that has that hashtag. Everything that has to do with Seesaw, I hashtag it with Seesaw AISJ. So now when I go on my Drive and I search Seesaw AISJ, it should pull up there. So all of these are things that I've worked on that are specifically for Seesaw, but they may not be in the same folder. They could be like in different folders everywhere. So what did I do to do this is basically what I did is I just go on to any file and then I click on the title and then I just hashtag it with that. So this is just one example of what you could do to sort things better in your drive and find things easier. All right, let me go back to the slides. And now we're going to talk about details and activity pane. The details that they give you, Google Drive for any file, allows you to see location, allows you to see who owns it. And sometimes when you're lost on a document that has been shared a long time ago with you, then all you need to do is just go to the details for that document, and you should be able to find the owner, the location, and it's also linked, so you can click there and it takes you to where the location of that document and more information about that document specifically, when it was created and all of that. Now, we also have the activity tab on there, and if you haven't looked at that before, it's really useful, and especially when you have more than one copy of a document and you want to know which one is the most recent one. What you can do is just go on to activity and then look at side and see when it was last modified. It shows you who had modified it last, when it was last modified. So you'll know if this was the recent one, the most recent one, or this was the original copy that you have been shared before. So it's really easy to look at these and just know more information. And it's available for all of the files and the folders on your drive.
Hey, so this has been around for about a year, and I just recently started using it, and so it's a priority for me to share it with you. Okay, yeah. So if I go ahead and pop over to where you can see it, so just if you go to My Drive, it's over in this left side here. You can just click on priority. Now Google will look at the things that you have most recently done, things from today and yesterday. If you've had comments, or if students and or other teachers had comments, that will show up here. And there's quite a few that you can see. There's usually about 8 or 10. Depending on how active you are on your Google files. The second thing that is right in the same area of priority is called Workspaces. Workspaces is just a place where you can kind of put all your bookmarks together. Now, you can put both My Drive files and your shared drive files together in a shared spot. So if I was going to make one for my class that I teach, I can go here and then start adding files just like you would. You can click on add files and you can search under the recent ones that you've just been working with, or you can start searching for My Drive. So one of the files is fishbulb. So you can select more than one. If I wanted to put my newsletter, oops. So as you can see, you can pick and choose the ones that you want. Fishbowl as well. And I can come back over here, insert on the bottom. And now I have these 4 things there. Now it's just kind of like a placeholder or a file system, like if it was on your desk and something that you're using this week for a short term or for a unit, you can have them all together. Oops, done. And if it's for a unit and then you want to use it again next year, you can come up here and hide it. And then it'll stay down here in the bottom. So things from the start of the year, I still have down there that I'll reopen again next year because they're all in different folders. I don't have them all in the same folder. Or if you don't want it anymore, you can remove the workspace. But what's really nice about this, and it even reminds you that the files themselves aren't going to get deleted, but just this workspace or just this folder. But everything still stays how you have it organized in your Google Drive. One last thing I wanted to point out is within a workspace, you can only add up to 25 files. Now, that may seem like a lot, but once you start adding things in there, you may have more than 25 that you want to have all in one spot, but just know that you can always break them up into smaller chunks. And that way, like if you want to have student files, your files, you can always have them in a separate workspace if you wish. We're going to move on to the folder section. And many of you may already know that you can sort by name, have it alphabetical or in reverse alphabetical order, but some of you may not know that you can order it in a different location. So let me go back to my drive. And your folders are always going to be on top. So scroll down to the things that I need to get organized with. But if you come here, you can organize it by when you last modified it. There's another arrow that you can reverse sort it. So if I come down here again, you can see that there's some things that were sorted or just worked on today. But if I go backwards, here are things that I haven't touched or last modified since last year. So when you're starting to organize some things, if you want to organize it this way, going, I haven't touched it in a year, I can put all of those into a last year's folder. And if you don't get time to organize it, it's still stuff from last year. You may want to search for it. If you have hashtags, you can search for it by hashtags. But just know, if you haven't touched it in a year, you're not going to do much. But you can also do last opened by me. So if you're opening something and it hasn't been opened for 5 years, you may not need it anymore. But you can always make an archive folder and come back to it when you're like, oh yeah, I do need it. And color code is just what it says. You can right click or on a Mac, if you have a Mac, 2-finger click, you can go down and change color to any color. I like to keep things red that I need to pay attention to, and then other colors for the ones that maybe they archived or the older ones, so you can have it just as a muted color. So that's one thing that I like to do. I also like to do is to make little icons or emojis in front. Now, two things it's very visual for those of you that are also very visual, but it also puts it to the top of your list. So it kind of puts it above anything alphabetical. So in my animation here, you can see I sometimes use like a little squiggly line, and that puts it to the top because I need to know where those files are on a day-to-day basis. If you do the same thing with emojis, they're going to be up on the top as well. And the website where I stole them is on the bottom. And lastly, I've been talking about this left panel a lot. It has so many benefits. One thing, if you've ever found yourself clicking on some files and trying to scroll up to the top and going, where's that folder that I want to dump it into? And then you hit a button and then you lose all the ones that you've selected. If you use the left side and there's arrows here that if you click on them, they just open all the folders up. And then you can just click and drag straight over to the left. And you don't have to scroll up and lose your space. You can keep yourself organized that way by just clicking and dragging the folders over.
Start file and folder. You've probably seen this also on your drive, and that's the left panel section where you see the recent, the shared with me. There's the start. I find this tool or feature really, really helpful, and especially when you have so many tasks. And there are so many documents that you'll be working on at the same time for different projects, for different classes, to keep those in a place where it's kind of like a tasks list or more of a favorite list. It's really powerful. So you can start a file, and it's really easy to start any document, whether it is a Google Doc or a slide or any other type in Google Drive. If you open it right next to the title, you should see that star. And if you just click on it, it should turn to yellow. And that means that file is now under the start. So instead of having to browse through folders and folders to find it, when you go back to working on this document, you just go to the start and it's right there. So it's more of a favorites shortcutted list for what you are working on and visit so frequently. The same thing for folders. So let's say I have just created a Google Doc because for my class, and let's title it G Drive. G Drive tips. Okay, so if you are going to add this, or I'm going to add this to a folder that's already embedded in other folders, I will need first to click on this little move icon that's right next to the star. And then I would need to navigate in my drive and look through all of these folders, right? And that may have embedded folders to get to it. right? So I'm not going to go through all of that. But instead, if you had starred that folder that you visit so often, all you would need to do is click on the back arrow right here and then go to starred. And because you add to this folder so much, then you would have it here in the short list. Let's say it's a PD resource for me because I use that so much. I would click here and I would click and move. So it really took me only 3 clicks instead of actually finding in my drive the folder, the embedded folder, and then get to the PD resources one. So this is how I would use starring of folders. I would keep it only for those folders that you use so often and you add things to so often, so that you can just keep on adding to and finding easily. Then next, we have the shortcut files and folder. So we wanted to put this in this presentation because, first of all, there's a misconception on what shortcut means, and then also because we did find that shortcutting well, also it was added not very long ago to Google Drive, and it cuts down on making copies. And we know we a lot of us make copies, and we find a resource and we like to make a copy because we want to own it and have it in our drive. But we found that after making so many copies, our drive is just a mess, right? It's like a drawer of like messy socks, right? So shortcutting can cut down on the space used in your drive, but also on how many copies you have for anything. So what is a shortcut? For me to, just to kind of put this in more a visual way, it's like a room and it has like content. So that's like the furniture of the room. Then when you create a shortcut for that room or for that file, then you're basically adding doors, right? So you're just only adding a door to that room. You're not making another room. So you're not making another file. You're only adding different doors that access the same room. And this is what shortcutting means. Okay, so when you see shortcut of an app or shortcut of a file, it's really just a pointer or a door to that original room. So shortcutting of files and folders is really easy. All you would need to do is just right click on any file or folder, and from the list, choose the add to shortcut. So let me show you here. Let's say I want to shortcut this one. So I would just right click and add shortcut to drive. That's where the feature is, and then you would add it in any folder. It pulls up the folder structure for you, and then you would add it. So shortcutting though means that any changes happen to this file, to the original one, will be reflected into the shortcutted one that you just made. Okay, so it's not a copy. Again, they're all synced. So any changes will be reflected on the other one. So just know that as you shortcut files and folders. And why would you need a shortcut? It's because you don't want to make a copy, or maybe you have your team and you have been working on a document that you want to share with your team, but you have a shared drive for your team, and that document is for you. So what you would do is you would shortcut that document into the shared drive of the team. So then the team now sees your resource, and they can see also every time that you make changes, it's reflected on their side as well. Okay, so that's when we would use shortcut. Shared with me is another section that I wanted to talk about today because it's there. And every time I go to that section, I feel like I can't, like, there's so much there. So let me show you what that looks like. Basically, it's everything that has been shared with you, since day one of you accessing your drive. So if you've been to conferences, if you've just, if you've collaborated with others around the world, anything that they share with you will be in this. Okay, but it's not owned by you. All of these files are owned by that person who has shared it. Now, here's where also shortcutting comes into play, because what I like to do with shared with me is never try to organize it. However, what I like to do is go through it because it's a feed. It's kind of like, a Facebook feed. So I try to go through it at least like every 2 weeks, just scroll down to see if anything new that has been shared with me that I think is valuable for me to organize. So then what I would do is, let's say I scrolled through this and I found, the assembly, or like the virtual open house. Okay. And I feel like this one, I want to have it on my drive and I want to organize it. So what I would do is right click on that file and click add shortcut to drive. So then that means it's now in my drive, but it's linked to this original one that they have shared with me. But now I can see it, I can find it in my drive, right? If you think it's something important, then you want to organize it, because otherwise it'll be in a feed. And as more people share with you, it'll just be there, right? And you won't be able to find it. So the things that matter to you from that shared with me, make sure you add a shortcut to your drive so that you organize them in your own folder. And yeah, so that's shared with me. And make sure that you do this regularly. I wouldn't say like every week, because that would be too much, but maybe once a month, maybe every 2 weeks. Just go through that feed and then see what's there that you want to put in your own drive. Okay, and remember, if you put it as a shortcut, it's you're not changing their file. It's just that it's a pointer or a door to their file. Okay. And that's it for me here. Shared folders.
All right.
Oh
So
my.
at least the last mind-blowing one before you get to tackle many of these by yourself. So let me come back here and go back. So I don't know about you, but I know when I share things with students or parents, sometimes I forget to share them. So I give them the link, but they can't open it. So there are ways that or tricks that you can go around. So here I have a folder of maybe some student resources that you hand out. Currently, it's only viewable by me, including the handout that's inside here for the example. But often you can go in and do just one file at a time. But with this hack, if you share the whole folder, anything, any subfolders and any files inside are also, you don't have to go and reshare them. You still need the link, but you don't need to change the permissions. So if I were to share or change the permissions from only myself to anyone within the school can view, now you can see that there are heads on each of these saying that is shared. And then if I go into my example, you can now see that it's also shared. And if I look here, I just go to share, it's already shared with anyone with the link. So I don't have to worry about when I, right click and get the link. I don't have to worry about coming down here and sharing every single file. Another way is you can share a whole folder with your students, and that way they can go into the whole folder if you want them to, or you can still just share the whole folder so they can get to it, and then you're still giving them access to one file at a time as you see fit on Schoology or Seesaw.
The last slide that we have here is the shortcuts, the keyboard shortcuts. We do have a few, only 4, that we think are really, really useful. Renaming of a file. All you would do if you want to rename a file with the keyboard shortcut is just, let me go to my drive. So there's this file. If you just go to your keyboard and click on N. Oh, where was it?
Within the folder.
Within the folder, yeah. So click on N with the keyboard, and then that should pull up the editing of the read and name for that file only on the keyboard. Like if you just click on the file and N on the keyboard, it should let you just edit that. So if you're working quickly and you want to just rename things very easily, then you can simply do that.
Nancy, can you actually go back to somewhere in your drive and show them that, please?
Okay, so let's say iPad cart next here. So there's this one. Okay, so if I just tap on it and click on N, it should pull up that box for you and let you just change the name for it. Another one is the undo action. You've probably heard this or used this before. Control Z works on drive. So if you're doing something and you want to go back to the previous moment of your editing, then Control Z should take you or undo what you've done recently. Preview is really cool because if you are in your drive and you want to see a document tapping on or selecting the document and clicking P on your keyboard. And that should just give you right there the preview. Okay.
Jeez.
So instead of putting or selecting it and then double clicking it. So P and N for now, and Control Z. And the last one that we have is to move files. And let me show you. It should pull up Z. There. Is it showing? Oh, there you go. So then it just pulls up that, move the folder into what folder do you want to move this file to? Okay. So these are four that we think will be really handy as you move and, work more on Drive, and you have more files to maneuver. We wanted to challenge you to try 2 hacks from the list that we have. And if you have access to, or if you have opened the slides, you should be able to see them. And those are clickable. So you can it takes you to the actual slide for it. And the last thing we want you to do, there is a feedback survey that we have prepared. We would like for you to give us feedback, tell us what we can improve, blah, blah, blah. And you would get a certificate of completion with a badge that Ryan is super excited about.
Thank you for joining All Things Google Drive Hacks with the EdTech team. Please join us next time as we explore other exciting EdTech adventures.